All right, so Black Myth Wukong, the game's coming out. It looks amazing. The game, like even the benchmark tool, like the visuals, oh, looks incredible. I am very excited to play this game. As you might be aware, there's a lot of controversy that goes around it, especially with like hoaxes, extortions, and alleged claim that was never proven, and some woke DEI stuff trying to destroy the game's reputation. I've also heard a lot of talks around it, like why this is bad and this and that. I am not going to sit here and debate that it wasn't bad, but I want to throw a little bit of wrench in this argument that this kind of thing is never going to go away. I've seen a lot of people talk about gaming journalists is going to go away, they're a dying industry. Yeah, I don't think so, man. I'm going to show you at the end of the video through various means, right? Like just that is just simply not true. Gaming journalism is here to stay. They might not be, as mainstream or as like big as it could have been, but they are very much here to stay. And I'll show you why at the end of the video after we watch like just what exactly is going on with Black Myth Wukong right before launch.
Black Myth Wukong is one of the most anticipated games of this year. If you're anything like me, you're looking forward to it. I can't wait. I'm a big Souls fan to begin with, so I can't wait to
Oh,
get
that's
my
a cute
hands
cat.
on it. But with that said, it's also been a game that's had a lot of hit pieces ran on it ever since the game's reveal. Just recently, I ended up reading an article from The Guardian where they're going in and talking and parroting the same points that I've seen many other journalists say and trying to paint the game in a bad picture, specifically trying to send the message that, hey, yeah, it looks like a good game, but the developer doesn't say very nice things, and we probably shouldn't support them. So today what I want to do is I want to talk about...
There's one thing I have to say here. Have you guys noticed that like gaming journalists have been pushing DEI even harder after like Gamergate shit? There's a reason for that, right? And they wouldn't do it if it wasn't profitable. You think by pushing all those DEI nonsense, they are losing popularity, they're losing their businesses? It's the exact opposite.
the media's obsession with Black Myth Wukong, but
And as a matter of fact, the more angry you are at them about it, the more they're going to do it.
more than anything, I want to talk about why they're obsessed. If you haven't heard, Black Myth Wukong is blowing up before its release. The game is already the most wishlisted game on Steam, and just the other day, the benchmark tool brought in over 85,000 players at its peak. An optimization testing tool brought in more players, 40 times the amount of players as Sony's open beta.
That game is a joke.
Low blow, I know, but it'll become a little bit more relevant later on. With that said, Black Myth Wukong's developer Game Science likely has a breakout hit on their hands, and this is their debut title. But there are those that are out there that want to try and stand in its way. Just a couple weeks ago, Tom Regan of The Guardian wrote an article titled Black Myth Wukong, the summer's most exciting and most controversial video game. This beautiful looking action game is based on Journey to the West, the great Chinese novel, but its own journey to release has hit a bump in the road. Tom writes, after playing Wukong for an hour and a half in a London hotel suite, watched nervously by Game Science employees, I can confirm that somewhat...
Bruh. How can... Dude, just look at how, like, that is a little piece of content that doesn't need to be there. Right? Like, it's like, what are you trying to say here? What are you trying to imply here?
But miraculously, this stunning Chinese mythological twist on Dark Souls delivers on that showy trailer. Marrying fluid-feeling combat and reflex testing difficulty and the expensive filmic sheen of something like God of War. As I sprint through Wukong's dense jungle, ducking and dodging through a dead...
I hope you guys realize the background image doesn't really do the game the justification that it deserves. It looks a lot better than that. That looks very grainy. It looks like it's like the camera's overexposed. It doesn't look like that in game. Okay, if you run the benchmark tool, you know how good the game looks. It doesn't.
Array of
it's a YouTube video.
Fauna, I come face to face with everything from gi-wearing toads to nightmarish gigantic-headed infants. Unlike many of its brutally challenging From Software-inspired peers, the difficulty in Wukong feels expertly judged. My simian avatar met a grisly end more times than I care to admit.
I don't know how to feel about that. as far as my opinion on this goes, like if a gaming journalist is thinking that the game is not that hard, I don't know, man.
Admit, but I persevered. Eventually, I defeated enough foes to unlock new abilities. Soon, I can perch atop my staff mid-attack, giving me an edge against its murderous mythological monsters. I can buzz around the forest as a stealthy cicada, summon flames from my glaive, and eventually topple a snarly, lorry-sized werewolf atop a crumbling temple. We're Under Great Pressure reflects one of Game Science's co-founders who was introduced only as Ted. Game Science wouldn't give his full name via translator. This is the first time we have worked on a PC and console game, and we are also a new studio. So we really like to think how tolerant the players and the market is towards us. Their excitement encourages us. However, the thinking of Chinese people tends to be we look at the risks. And therefore, when we're faced with such great encouragement, the best thing we can do is to try our best to satisfy the expectations of the players and communicate with the players in a very honest way. China has dominated the mobile gaming market. You look at everything that HoYoverse has done, from Genshin Impact to Zenless Zone Zero, Honkai Star Rail, Honkai Impact Third. These games have made a lot of money. They have a lot of players. And what they've done is they've actually paved the way for Chinese developers to be able to reach global markets. Something that was relatively inaccessible.
I don't think that's necessarily the global. Sorry, I don't necessarily think that that's the mobile game market. I think that's just Genshin Impact. Genshin Impact sort of broke down the wall.
Accessible for them in the past. And in that, I'm actually kind of surprised that we're not seeing more skepticism when it comes to a new studio that hasn't released a game before, that's releasing a AAA game that looks as good as this does, and it's coming from a country that we normally don't see a lot of games come from in the first place. But I think it's great that we are seeing that support, because from my perspective, I just want to see more video games, and the more countries that are out there that are making them, the more diverse ideas and cool games that we can play, and that's what I'm all about. And to be honest, we haven't really even seen that many AAA games come from China in the first place. I think the only one that I can think of off the top of my head is like Rocket Blade Point. That's pretty much about it. But one of the things the developers brought up was that they feel like they're under a lot of pressure, and I don't think people really understand or recognize just how much pressure that they're under. Because keep in mind, they have far more rules and restrictions that they need to follow before they can even try to ship a game outside of their country. And way more restrictions than Western studios have, that's for sure. But with that said, you also have, clashes in culture and things like that. And I think what they've chose to do, especially with Black Myth Wukong, is just, emulate the success of another game and try to adapt their ideologies or their philosophies of game design into their game. And that's what Black Myth Wukong kind of represents to me. It's a smart idea. You're going to be able to hook up with a pretty large audience because a lot of people really like Souls games, especially after Elden Ring. So it's a great idea to be able to reach as many
I hope the game is
players as you
different
possibly
enough
can.
than
But
actually
one of the other
Souls
difficulties
games.
that they're running into is one that's completely unnecessary. And it's the fact that for some odd reason, there are a lot of Western critics that do not want to see this game get any level of success. Tom continues with his article saying,
No, it has nothing to do with that. Like, it is not a matter of that they don't want this game to get any success. It is a matter of that they want to get their own success. I mean, I'll explain this at the end of the video.
I am unfortunately met with very little honest communication when I bring up a report from IGN which related alleged sexist comments from multiple developers at Game Science, as well as those in leadership roles. I presented Ted with the opportunity to address those claims of misogynistic posts and whether he feels they represent Game Science's values. Instead, I am shut down with a hasty no comment from their UK PR representative, and then, after a long wait, given a longer statement of no comment via Ted's translator. I am then told that Game Science's US PR agency will follow up later with a prepared statement, only to be sent the following. Game Science is focused on the demo at this time and will only answer questions related to gameplay. The same thing happened to an IGN reporter at a demo in Los Angeles last month. It is disappointing that Game Science is opting to invite journalists to speak to them and play the game, but refusing to answer their questions. Perhaps there is no...
Because you're not asking questions about the game. That's the problem. They have no obligations to answer you anything except for when it's about the game.
Reassurance to offer. A generous reading of the situation would be that this is an inexperienced studio petrified of saying the wrong thing. Yet, in failing to
Bruh, you cannot be serious, right? Petrified of saying the wrong thing? They already told you to go fuck yourself. Like, you seriously think they are afraid of saying the wrong thing? Come on now.
say anything at all, game science is also failing to distance itself and its game from multiple crude, disparaging, and misogynistic comments attributed to its employees and leadership. Journey to the West, of course, is no stranger to the world of video games. From Ninja Theory's 2010 Alex Garland penned and Andy Serkis starring Xbox 360 adaptation Enslaved: Odyssey to the West, to Akira Toriyama's world-conquering Dragon Ball, it's a world of myth and monkeys that lends itself perfectly to gaming. Black Myth Wukong's stunning visuals, cinematic beauty, and refreshing sense of speed could well make it the best playable adaptation of the fable to date. But the unreserved excitement I would otherwise feel about it is being trampled by the elephant.
I have some problem with this UI, and I hope they fix this. Why is the HUD so small? Why is it so small? Like, you play Souls games, you play Dark Souls, you play Elden Ring, like, your health bar and your mana bar and everything is huge up here, and your items are huge. This UI, man, I hope they fix this, or at least give us an option to customize the HUD size.
In the room. Guys, I'm going to be honest with you, I cannot believe that they wrote this. The elephant in the room, huh? I would imagine the elephant in the room is the fact that the report from IGN was found to be heavily mistranslated and misrepresented, spreading misinformation.
You see how they don't directly reference what's being said? They do it this way. They don't reference the actual thing. It's because they don't want to be held liable for their words.
Information about a studio either by the way of IGN's ignorance or their malice. The report that they mention is something that was parroted by almost every other gaming news site. Headlines with this narrative ran wild since the reveal of Black Myth.
Because it draws attention, man. It gets people mad. It gets both sides of the spectrum mad, you know? It upsets the people who's like feminists or whatever, like the DEI people who's gonna get mad at the company, and it upsets the people who hates DEI in games, who's gonna get mad at the websites. So it's like win-win situation for them.
With Wukong's trailer a few years ago, making sure that players know, yeah, the game looks cool, but guys, this is a very bad developer. This misrepresentation even led to Game Science's studio allegedly being vandalized by the people that were claiming to do it based on that news of the studio's quote-unquote sexist culture. Eventually, through social media, readers and critics pointed out the mistranslations. Hell, Asmongold's editor, Clip's editor, did a better job of reporting and investigating, showing all of the mistranslations.
Context. IGN published an article trying to smear the company and the devs behind Black Myth Wukong as some sexist freaks because of some of their employees' social media posts. The article cites one of their artists who basically did the still wood meme about this monster. The problem is that this game journalist, either by sheer incompetence or malice, translated these posts in the most uncharitable way possible. And this is nothing compared to the most egregious mistranslation after one of the game company founders posted this in 2020, apologizing for the lackluster trailer of Black Myth Wukong just released. Now, how on earth do you get?
I want to expand my circle and hire more people. Get licked until I can't get an erection.
In reality, the actual translation completely changes the meaning of what he was saying. Not satisfied, I went back checking if anyone called this out when it happened, and they did.
And ultimately, this all led to the original writer of the IGN report giving a backhanded non-apology, avoiding the conversation of mistranslation, still perpetuating the lie, and upset over Game Science's lack of response, and that the game with a Monkey King and a bunch of anthropomorphic characters and that the game with a Monkey King and a bunch of anthropomorphic characters doesn't have enough femme-coded characters. I am beyond myself. The gall to come forward and say something like maybe they don't want to say anything because they're afraid to say the wrong thing. What exactly is the wrong thing, even though it was all mistranslated and misrepresented in the first place? Sure, they may have said some crude things, but you don't understand their culture or the intricacies of their language and how they use
it's mostly just to be funny.
Use colloquialisms and things like that. So you're just applying what you believe onto what they are saying. I'm appalled. It's just ridiculous is what it is. I'm shocked. I don't even really know how to respond to something like this. I think that Western critics and game journalists, not all of them, but some of them, view these Chinese-made games and games made in some other countries as a threat. Because these are studios that will not fall in line with whatever their narrative is, even if they are in the wrong.
Nah, I don't really agree with that. I mean, this is one interpretation of it, but at the end of the day, they're all just businesses. Like they're grifting businesses, but they're still always just the businesses. Like I don't think they view them as a threat. I just view them as a chance to make a lot of money because it is always contentious when you involve China in whatever conversation you will have. And it always gets people emotional, right? Whether you are the people who like China or you're the people who hate China, right? So every time they see a popular game that's Chinese, they see a golden goose. That's what they see. Okay, it's not really. It's ideologically, they have no reason to actually hate them. I'm sure there are like freaks who actually have like this hatred towards anything that's not DEI or LGBTQ or whatever it is. But as a business, it's just a great way to make money because China is a topic that gets people emotional. That's all.
Because there are times, and there have been times in the past, where the media was wrong about something, but still wanted and still pressured the studios to do something and say something that otherwise went against it. And that's exactly what they're trying to do now. Still running with the exact same narrative, even though it's already been disproven. What is the point of that? Because now what they want is that even though it's been disproven, well, we still want you to tell us that you like women. What are you doing?
Kitty cat.
What is the point of this? And even
so
more
cute.
so when you're putting out an article talking about the overall feeling of the game, how much you enjoyed the game, and then you have to put something like that in there. Like, we don't know what you're trying to do. Trying to spin a narrative around this game to make it feel like, man, you should probably...
It's engagement, man. It's just engagement farm. Don't take it personally. Like, it really doesn't have anything to do. Like, on a business level, it doesn't have anything to do with the ideology. It's just engagement farm.
Feel bad about playing this game, guys. You should feel bad about it. They're bad people over there. They say mean things on the internet. They say crude things on the internet. How dare they? I think the worst thing possible out of all the things that they said was there was an image of like a snake woman, like a lady that was like, her head was a regular person, but her body was like a snake. It was some like horror creature. And they were like, still would. Are you serious?
Well, I mean, the mythology behind that girl is that she can transform into an actual woman. And she's like kind of a seductress. Some kind of, like, if you can understand it that way. So, I mean, if the Chinese people are saying still what, it's because they know, 'cause she can transform into a human, right? And mythologically speaking, she's always been portrayed as like, if you guys know One Piece, basically that girl is the inspiration for Boa Hancock. And you think of Boa Hancock as her. And you think whether you will smash Boa Hancock or not, right? Like, come on.
What, like they're not allowed to be human and take part in meme culture? Are you serious? What is this? What, like, this like thought policing and I don't know, man. Like, I'm so happy that their position was, we're working on the demo right now, and that's the only thing that we want to talk about.
That is
because at the end
very
of the day,
based.
that's the only thing that actually matters.
Yeah,
the game matters. What they do outside of that has no impact whatsoever on what consumers actually care about in the first place. Some of these some of these journalists and games media heads wonder why they're losing subscribers, want to know why they're losing readers. Well, it's probably because of the fact you keep putting things in your art.
Where does this come from? Like, how do you know they're losing subscribers and writers? I'll talk about this after I finish the video.
Articles and in these discussions that don't belong there in the first place. I originally went to go and read that article because it was talking about their first impression.
Like, you're contradicting yourself here, right? I mean, I agree that those journalists are absolute degenerates, right? They're no good to anybody. But To say that they are not getting views is just being disingenuous. You literally said it yourself. Like, you said they're losing views, yet how many people do you think, heard about it and start looking up those articles? Like, no, I mean, yeah, sure, they're bad, but to say that they're not getting views, I don't think that's true, man. Maybe I'm wrong. Like, I don't actually know exactly how many views they get. Like, the metrics behind those gaming journalism, it's very difficult to measure. It's very difficult to measure because their business model is very different than traditional media. I mean, actually, it's not that different from traditional media. It's actually very similar to traditional media in the sense that they don't survive on a straightforward metric. They don't survive on their own brand. If you know what I mean, they're essentially parasites. I'll go a little bit deeper and show some examples of how this works at the end of this video.
And I was just trying to gather a bunch of people's first impressions on the game. And then all of a sudden you want to go off on this tangent on something that was already disproven in the first place? What are we doing? What is this? This isn't the first time we've seen this. The Wizard game. Yeah, that's right. Hogwarts Legacy. Game critics and journalists dogpiled this game as hard as they could. Wired.com gave it a 1 out of 10, not because of the gameplay, not because of the aesthetics, but because of the fact that J.K. Rowling had something to do with it, even though they're just the creator of the source material and actually had nothing to do with the actual creation of the video game, but that didn't matter. Meanwhile, a slew of other reviewers boycotted even reviewing the game in the first place. Some magazines didn't even post reviews whatsoever, and many of those that did actually review it still made sure to drop a little piece of their mind about J.K. Rowling in the reviews. What are the chances that we see the same thing with Black Myth Wukong? Is it going to suffer the same fate? Regardless of how many people tried to derail Hogwarts Legacy, it ended up being the first title in 15 years to beat Call of Duty in sales, selling 23 million copies in 2023.
Wait, no way. It has to be one of those less popular titles of Call of Duty. I do not believe that the outsold Modern Warfare. In no way. I don't think that's true. But it could be true for maybe Black Ops 3. I think that's a less popular one.
Proving that social issues have no impact whatsoever on what games players want to play and what they want to buy. Hell, back when Activision Blizzard went through their major controversy, the players that were leaving the game weren't leaving because of what happened at the company. They were quitting because the game sucked. And as soon as they came out with a new expansion, the vast majority of the players returned to the game. I think that there are those in media today that are afraid of losing influence, afraid of games, studios, and publishers that they can't pressure in some way, shape, or form. If the readers aren't listening and the game makers don't listen either, then their relevance is nothing more than a flickering candle in the wind and they're running out of wick. There is no verifiable proof of game science mistreating their employees. And the only thing that you have to go off of are some jokes that they have made on the internet that any other human would make. Things that you see all of the time. Creating victims out of thin air. What's probably worse for them is the truth that they're coming to realize. Customers only care about the value.
Nah, they will never realize this. As soon as the next plausible controversy pops up, they're going to be all over it. And guess what? You and I are going to be all over it. And everybody else is going to be all over it. And they're going to get a lot of money from this. Okay? They're never going to stop. They're never going to go away. Okay? That's just okay. I want to briefly talk about the WoW expansion. I want to be brief about this because it's not related and it's not relevant. Dragonfly as an expansion kind of made people stop rationalizing why the game is bad and just basically it pulled them back to reality that Blizzard just don't know how to make WoW anymore. And remember at the beginning of Dragonfly, everybody's saying, "Oh, this game is so good. This expansion is so much promises." One season after, the game is dead.
Of the product itself and not how it was made or who it was made by. Catering to these niche audiences who actually do buy things based on morals is useless because likely they don't even exist in the first place, and even if they did, they probably don't even play video games. This is only another factor that devalues the perspective and the voice of traditional games media and reviewers. And I know that there are good professional journalists and reviewers that are out there, but I wish that they were calling this kind of stuff out, especially the writer from IGN and The Guardian, because this is only serving to damage their credibility and the credibility of all games media. The lack of independent...
They don't live on credibility. If you know media at all, like especially mainstream and those gaming journalism media, they don't live on credibility. They don't live on their own brand, man. Like, They don't live on that. That's not the metric they're looking for.
Independent thought and reasoning within games media today is staggering. It just blows my mind. At this point, I cannot wait for Black Myth Wukong to come out. Not because I can't wait to play it, which obviously I can't wait to play it, but just to see the hot takes. Because you know for a fact, because for how long some of these different articles, journalists, and media sites have been running this headline and running with this narrative, you know they're going to be including that stuff going forward. Still trying to ask and find out, yeah, but you still didn't say that, you know, it doesn't reflect on your studio or anything like that.
They will stop. They will definitely stop. They will stop once people stop caring about it. Yeah, once they'll only stop when people just look at it and say, "Oh, okay," and then just move on and never actually look into it. And everybody stops talking about it. That's when they will stop.
What does that even matter? Like, they haven't made a joke or a crude joke or anything like that in the past. It's so disingenuous. And that's one of the reasons why the vast majority of people have just completely turned off of reading articles or IGN or any of these companies anymore. Is because it's so disingenuous. It's so fake. It's so fake. You don't care about any of these things. You're just searching for a headline that you hope will get clicks. That's all it is.
I think yes. Yeah, you're absolutely right on this. He is on the spot, on the money for this. But the sad thing is, they do get clicks. They do get clicks with those kind of stuff. So
everybody can see it. Everybody knows it. Most of this stuff now, you're just making it up out of thin air. It's just even worse. Because now it's not only that, you know, we didn't find you entertaining, right? So we stopped reading because of that. But now we can't even trust the words that you say because you're just going to say whatever you want to hopefully try to get somebody to.
Well, you're assuming that people read these articles rationally. Nah, they are really good at this. It's true for both mainstream media and gaming journalism, okay? They make you mad, right? They make you emotional. You no longer think about it rationally or logically, or you stop realizing, oh, this is just a clickbait. You get so angry, you click on it anyway.
To look at what you're saying. What's funny is, and I should have brought this up, I might end up making another video about this, but recently I just saw that PC Gamer put out an article talking about putting community notes on YouTube videos and how this games writer was talking about how, you know how much YouTubers like to lie. Pot calling the kettle black.
That's pretty funny, actually.
Meanwhile, none of these journalists seem to hold each other accountable. You guys ever notice that? You see YouTubers all the time. They'll go back and forth. Somebody will say something. They'll hold them honest. They'll make videos on it. Obviously, they can farm it. But you don't often see any of these games journalists ever going after one another for anything. Somebody writes a bad article or they lie about something or misrepresent something. Nobody wants to talk about it. At least not on the professional side.
That is true, though. Like,
I mean, they can call that professionalism. I could call it dishonest.
I think there is a big part of it is because they are not independent. And if you speak out of terms, especially going after another journalist, you can get like fired from your job. I think a big part of that is just that they're not independent. I think if they are independent, they'll farm each other for years. They'll farm each other for eternity. Okay? They'll farm the shit out of each other. But the only reason they couldn't do that is because it might damage the interest of the company overall. And they're not like independent creators, or they're not independent critics. So that's what I think.
Anyway, I'm looking forward to Black Myth Wukong. What about you guys?
Oh yeah, I'm hyped,
anyway,
dude. This game is gonna be so good.
Thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed the video.
This is a great video. Like, this is quite amazing. I like all of his videos. He does very good deliveries on pretty much everything. Like and subscribe. I mean, who am I to tell you to do that? But okay, let's look into this, right? So I've heard some argument. Let's go to Google Trend. Right? I heard arguments about this. Let's look at IGN. Like, people love to talk about this, right? I'll show you why this is not even, it's just not relevant to look at any of this. Okay. See, well, they're dropping off, right? They're dropping off. Let me add more. I think the one that was recently talked about by Zach is GameSpot, I think. Yeah. GameSpot, let's see that. Oh, that's even a bigger drop off. What's the other one? Well, The Guardian that he talked about. well, Guardian is not strictly a news site, so I'm not gonna cite Guardian, right? It's not strictly a gaming journalist stuff, so I'm not actually gonna cite that. Let's think about another one. PC Gamers. Gamers. Oh, Jesus Christ. Hit the wrong key. PC Games. Yeah, PC Gamers Magazine. Okay. Oh, this one was never popular, but okay. Okay, you see this graph and you say that, okay, by observable metrics, they're falling off, their market share is dwindled, and they're basically going out of relevance. I'm sorry, but that's I don't think that's true. Because, okay, if my understanding of how Google Trend works is correct, this statistics is based off of query data. If you look at down here, you'll notice that using searching for your terms of search for these queries, okay? So these are query data. The problem with those websites is that they don't get engagement, or rather, I mean, anybody who's done social media or content creation knows there's two big part of content creation, of getting your content popular. One is impression, second is engagement, okay? So these people, they don't get impressions from them being searched as a query. I'll show you why. Right? Let's go Black Myth Wukong. Let's do that, right? Okay, except for all the ad stuff. See this? Kotaku, first one. Comic Book, Yahoo, Washington Post, MS. I don't know what the fuck this is. IGN above Wikipedia. Okay. A rock paper shotgun. I think that's also another one of those gaming journalism. IGN, YouTube, IGN, rock paper. I don't know what that is. Fandom is like more of a Wikipedia than anything else. And then IGN, Nvidia, and Game Rant. PC Gamers. I have shortened search results, right? I don't have that many results on a single page. But guess what? I didn't search for IGN, brother. I didn't search for IGN and see how many impressions that they get just by searching for the name of the game. I'll do another one. Okay. What's another good one? Warhammer 40K Space Marine 2. Let's look at this one. Fandom Wire, Game Rant, MSN, IGN. The first ever results when you search for Warhammer 40K Space Marine 2, IGN. Okay? IGN. Let's look Eurogamers, the Warhammer community. That's a good one. That's not a bad one. Like Screen Rant. Well, this is Microsoft bin, so I'm gonna ignore more of those because they're kind of like Microsoft stuff. And Amazon. Okay, this is just trying to sell you minis, and we both know that we can't afford it. And Focus Entertainment, that's the studio, Warhammer community, and Steam, Focus Entertainment. This one is not as bad. Digital Trend and all those media stuff. Now you see how they get engagement. You see how they get impressions. IGN, they don't. Okay, let's do another one. Let's do another game that's coming up that's good. Okay. Okay, this one might turn out that well because I don't think this is a good game that gaming journalists still hang on to. The War Within, I think this is more like Wowhead. If you search this, you get a lot more Wowhead results. Yeah. Wowhead does the same thing, by the way. It does the same thing. Even though it serves a different purpose, it does relatively the same thing. So this is not actually a good example. Okay, so there's a CBR result. But I think the best example is still Black Myth Wukong, right? What will be a good game to look at this for? Spectre Divide. I'm actually interested if there's any coverage of Spectre Divide. Spectre Divide game. See? IGN. Games.co. I don't even know what the fuck that is. IGN. News about IGN, Sportspedia, XCOM Gaming, what mountains. You see? MSN, The Verge, IGN, PC Games, and they do not survive on this. They do not survive on queries about them specifically. If you're hoping that they will go away, just because you see this graph, I'm sorry, you're delusional. It's not going to go away just because they don't search for those companies specifically. Okay? They don't sell themselves as a brand. They are parasites. That's their business model. They're never going to go away. As long as there are popular games, as long as there are search. Let's look at, so now that we established that they are actually living off of games rather than their own brand, let's look at some of the games, right? Black Myth Wukong. Yeah. Video game. Let's look at the 3 games that we looked at, okay? Warhammer 40K. Space Marine, is this 1 or 2? I think that might be Space Marine 1. That's Space Marine 2, okay? So I'm going to get rid of PC Gamer. Let's just look at those 2 games. Remove this. And instead of 20 past 12 months maybe. Okay. So, I mean, obviously they're closer to release, so past 90 days. So you see this engagement of Black Myth Wukong and the rising engagement of Warhammer 2, Warhammer 40K, Space Marine 2. You see all those core results? All of those gets an impression to those gaming journalism sites, okay? They live off of these, not their own brand. They live off of popularities of the subjects that they are actually writing on. So they're never going to go away. They're a parasitic industry. The only way that they go away is we stop paying attention to everything they do whatsoever. But guess what? They know what they're doing, and we're never going to stop paying attention to them. They know how to get us engaged. Very good example is exactly what was talked about in the video. You know, the controversy, all the horse shit about like misogyny or whatever. They get people mad. They get all people mad. And they are so good at SEO, like you can't avoid them. You're never going to avoid them. Okay? First thing you see when you search for those games are their stuff. Okay? Even above Wikipedia. You think they're going to go away? They never will. The only way that they go away is that you give them 0 click-throughs. Stop paying attention to them. But we won't. And as you can see, they manufacture their own drama that definitely gets people engaged. Right? The whole thing about the Black Myth Wukong, how many of you are engaged by that? How many of you actually looked up what is going on and actually looked at the original article? Right? And some of you might be skeptical and say, oh, I never click on those links. Me neither. But guess what? Well, a lot of other people. You do not get here. You do not get to be the first results if you don't get click-throughs. Okay? SEO doesn't work that way. If nobody clicks on your link, you won't get here. It's a page ranking algorithm. If your links, if your page doesn't get clicked, it wouldn't be here in the first place. So they definitely get click-throughs. They get loads of impressions just by searching the game. They're incredibly good at SEOs, and they get loads of engagement through high rates of click-through. That's how they survive. They're not going away. They're not going anywhere. And in the future, there will be even more manufactured drama. Okay? So, if you want them to... And this is a really depressing fact, is that if you truly want them to go away, in order to kill the parasite, you have to kill the host. And their host is the gaming industry. And we don't want that to happen. So they will survive. They always will. You know? I think the best way for us as customers to approach this is just don't take anything they say very seriously and just view them as what they are, which is entertainment. If you do that, you'll be fine. Don't make informed purchase decisions on their information. That's all I can say. Peace.